Hi, and welcome again to another edition of Market Analysis for today, October 1st. This is Giovanni Benacourt, and this is a recording previous to the US Asian Open. All right, so new month, October 1st, and a month that is going to be very interesting because obviously it's the month previous to the election on November 5th in the United States. So obviously the markets don't really care who is in the White House, but obviously some action that they might take obviously will have some effect. I want to bring to your attention something that we want to start doing on a weekly or a daily basis. So there's something called typical price, and the typical price is obtained by adding the high, the low, and the closing price of the asset, and then dividing it by 3. And this number, this typical price, can be used as a pivot point, because if the market is below it, it'll act as a magnet, and we can use that as a resistance. And if the market is above it, again, acting as a magnet, and we can use that as support. And it's just to give you a overall view of where the money flow obviously have been within that week. Because if you use a weekly chart, you use it for the week or for the month or for the day or for the hour or for the whatever time frame you're using. But typically you might want to use it initially as on a weekly, because you just want to have a reading and an understanding of where the money has gone, and you can use the previous week also. This is all testing different things out. So let's calculate last week's the week of September 23rd. So we say we want to add the high 20,536.37 plus the low 19,952.87 plus the closing 20,192 equals divided by 3. That gives you 20,227. So 20,227, which is right below what the market is at. So just for argument's sake, for this month, let's just use those exact coordinates, 227.08. All right, so let's change the color, and let's use a color that we understand. So white. All right, let's use that color. So we now know that level is the pivot point or the typical price for the NASDAQ for last week, right? Now, so far this week, we've been within last week's range, actually above. If you want to look at the the bodies of the candles, obviously this week we are above last week's trading range. Some people use only the body, but I like to use the entirety of the candle. The wicks are part of the candles. So obviously we inside. For me, we're inside the range. For some might say we're outside the range. But however, we could also use this level. Let's go back down now to a daily and see how the market has been. You see how the market has been fluctuating around it. Okay, so we continue to use that as probable levels of your support. Okay, we might just come and find if the market comes towards it. If it's above, a reversal, take it to the upside. Right now, if we go down to, let's say, half an hour, which is the charts that I like to start promoting to use as my analysis, then we see that the market is fluctuating towards it. So in this time frame, we can speculate the market to continue to trade lower and perhaps find that support. Initially, we have rebounded off the 50-day moving average, Okay, the 200-day moving average is above the market right now. So the market is clustered between two moving averages. So perhaps a continuation to the trending sideways could be speculated for the Nasdaq, or it could probably just be finding some tracking and finding that support and just making another leg high. That's as far as for the Nasdaq. So now let's go to the S&P. And again, once we're in the S&P, so we are in the S&P. So now let's go to the weekly. All right, so let's take last week's numbers. So we hit the high, 5829.20, plus low, 5744.70, plus the close, 5785.20 equals, divided by 3. That gives us 5,786, right? So that line that it's not in here, okay? So let's just use the coordinates, which is 5,786.36. So that's the one for the S&P 500. So now let's go down to daily. So we see how the market has been rebounding really off that pivot point or that typical price, and now it seems to be doing the same. So let's go back now to a half an hour and see what we can probably speculate or see it happening. All right, so in the half an hour, we see how the market is actually having a flip-flop of the moving averages. On the Nasdaq, the 200 was above the market and the 50 was below the 200. In this case, the 50 is above the 200 and below the market. So you could probably give a nice level of support for this. Obviously, the market is below the RSI of the 50 yard line, so 50 marker. So this is indicating a momentum buildup to the downside. So perhaps as we say that the pivot point acts as a magnet, if the market is above it, it'll attract towards it. So perhaps this is one way for analyzing that the market could probably continue to move lower and then just do a reversal of that pivot point. So let's do the Dow. Let's go to the weekly. Okay, so the Dow had a much more volatile week. So we have the high, 43,002, right? Plus the low, 42,204.50, plus the close, 42,62, 620 equals, divided by 3. That gives us 42,608. So let's use the coordinates, 42,608.83. Yes, be more precisely. Well, here we have, in this case, the pivot point above the market. So let's go down to the daily and see what we're doing. All right, so you see how the market is just only in this one day that the market actually, it fluctuated above it, but it came back down and and just closed right at it. So now the market is acting as a resistance, or that pivot point is acting as resistance. But let's see in a 30 minutes what we can speculate to see on this puppy. So all right, so the market is below it. So what that mean? The market is below the pivot point, the typical price. So would that mean that the market will come towards it because, I said, as a magnet, it attracts it? Now that it's below it, it could probably be. We have here the 200-day moving average above the market, and also the 50-day moving average above the 200 and the market. So that's a lot of resistance for the Dow to come in and fluctuate towards. But again, we could probably come down and see 4280, okay, and then just rebound or not. It'll probably just continue to move lower. So let's just use that example for those three, and you guys can do it on your own for the remaining of the assets. Let's take a look at what we could speculate as far as the other assets. So Russell, just really within range. Sideways trading. Oil is the one that is having more of a downtrend. So we did rebound here, create a double, an inverted hammer, if you will, and that just pointed us towards a reversal. Now the market rebounded off the 50-day moving average and trending lower. So $67 could probably be that psychological level of support. So perhaps selling it now. In the half an hour, silver was flattish. It created a small parabolic movement down to the downwards. It did sort of recuperate right now. So let's see if it'll continue and be able to fluctuate above the 50-day moving average. So Nat Gas is a possible trade right now. Then we have gold. And so gold is actually on this half an hour chart has rebound of that level of resistance that we have placed. Okay. And this previous parabolic movement is just another way of showing, understanding that there was accumulation, then a breakout, profit taken. Okay. It could probably continue as the RSI crisp back into neutral zone and then make another attempt to the upside. Therefore, since we are already kind of violated that level of resistance, is no longer really valid. So let's just use 2660 as our possible level of resistance for gold. Still looking to go longer, higher on gold, but obviously things could change. Then we have here silver, right? We just bouncing up the 50-day moving average on the half an hour chart, just moving sideways, shoppiness. Copper is the one that has broken out above the 50 and the 200, moving higher. So the resistance is 470, quite high, you might think, but you can use 460 as your initial target for this half an hour chart. Bitcoin seems to be having some difficulty being able to sustain itself north of 65, which it fluctuated lower than that. 64, obviously, in the more imminent range, is the one that is also showing resistance levels around that level, psychological support, resistance levels. So let's see if Bitcoin will find more support as it fluctuates towards the 63,000. Let's see if it'll be able to sustain 63,000. The currencies, well, the euro is just dropping like a yo-yo. Oh wow, this is a very sell-off mood in this half an hour. So 110 would probably be a level of support for the euro, and then we have the pound that is bouncing off that level of support that we have placed. So let's see if it'll be able to sustain itself or will it continue to trend lower as its counterpart. Then we have the dollar index, which has recuperated and is in the last half an hour in the uptrend move. So 101 is going to be that level of resistance on the target. Let's see if it'll reach there. If it does, then we'll see a more push to the downside on the metals and the currencies. That's it for me today. Have a great trading day, and I'll see you tomorrow.